Alright, yeah, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and for this week's weekly series, we've actually got a spicy little list. I would say that most of the decks that I build are spicy, because that's just how I roll, but this one's especially spicy. It just really it burns the tip of your tongue, this one. This week we're going to be playing a red-white Form of the Dinosaur deck. So, Form of the Dinosaur is a 6-mana enchantment that no one in their right minds would ever play, and that's why I'm playing it. 6-mana enchantment, it says, when Form of the Dinosaur enters the battlefield, your life total becomes 15, and at the beginning of your upkeep, Form of the Dinosaur deals 15 damage to target creature an opponent controls, and that creature deals its damage equal to its power back to you. So, the idea of this card is essentially that it bans creatures from existing. The downside is that they are guaranteed to get 1 hit worth of damage against you. So we've really got to work around that downside quite a fair bit. And what better way to work around that downside than to add a tremendous amount of life gain in our deck. So once our life total becomes 15, we can ping off that 1 creature just fine. But then after that, we've got to be gaining life pretty consistently to make sure that we aren't going too low on life, because if we're up against a deck with burn in it, then we could get burnt if we're on low lives. If our opponent's playing some big creatures, then we want to be able to have a high enough life total to actually be able to absorb the hits that they're going to deal. So, the ways that we go about that, they are pretty simple, and you might notice that this deck is quite similar to a deck that I built in the past as well. It's quite similar to the True Fire Paladin combo list. So in that sense, that one was all about big spells, big red and white spells, and we've even got Fire Song and Sunspeaker in here because I think they were actually quite a nice inclusion as well, because they actually give instants and sorceries lifelink as well, so turns our lightning strikes into lightning helixes. Same goes for our revitalizers actually, because we gain 3 life, and then the trigger on the white card for Fire Song actually deals 3 life, so it's really as an overpowered lightning helix essentially, which is kind of fun. But yes, we're breaking the synergy with Form of the Dinosaur using life gain. The biggest life gain that we have in our deck is Sanguine Sacrament. This is also another card that I'm going to be playing around with a lot, I think. I have built one that's dedicated around this card, but I think this one complements Form of the Dinosaur quite nicely. So if we go Form of the Dinosaur on turn 6, or whenever we manage to cast it, our life total becomes 15. If at some point during our opponent's next turn they place enough creatures down to threaten lethal, well, on our upkeep, before the Form of the Dinosaur trigger activates, we can actually, in response, Sanguine Sacrament. So this card is white, white, and X for an instant speed card that says you gain twice X life, where X is the amount of mana you spent to cast it, and then put Sanguine Sacrament on the bottom of its owner's library. So one fun thing you could do with Sacrament, and I hope to do it at some point during this series, because I've done it in the past and it's hilarious, is because Sanguine Sacrament actually goes to the bottom of your library, it prevents you from actually milling yourself. So you can draw a metric ton of cards if you really want, and leave only Sanguine Sacraments in your deck, which means every single turn you are looping a Sacrament, so you cast it for however much mana you've got. And since we can't die because creatures are banned, and we're gaining a metric ton of life, we have bindings for Planeswalkers and Star of Extinctions for them as well. It basically means that this is our alternative win con, because while we are looping Sanguine Sacrament and just drawing the same card over and over again, our opponent is not capable of doing that, and will eventually draw their entire deck and just mill themselves out, essentially. We could also gain enough life for them to not be able to realistically kill us with creature damage in any reasonable amount of time. Because if you imagine Sanguine Sacraments gaining 40 life every single turn, it's pretty hard to beat. As usual, we have our favourite Fountain of Renewal and Dawn of Hope combo. I swear I'm going to stop playing around with this combo, but it is just so good. It's probably my favourite combination from Guilds of Ravnica. Dawn of Hope is a 2-mana enchantment that says whenever you gain life, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. And it is a win con in itself as well. It is our main win condition. 4 mana, 3 and a white, to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink, which can then pay the 2 life when it deals combat damage to draw a card. So this is one way that we can draw our entire deck in order to loop the Sanguine Sacraments, but we can also pay the 4 life repeatedly every single turn in order to destroy our opponents with repeated creature beatdown. So when our opponent's done using all of their enchantment removal on Form of the Dinosaurs and Ixalan's Bindings and stuff like that, we just slap down a Dawn of Hope, generate a ton of tokens, and there's really just nothing they can do about it. This is one of our ways of actually dealing with control in the metagame, because as you might be able to tell, this deck is built to take down creatures. So currently in the top 8 as well, Boros Aggro is like 6 or 7 decks in the top 8. So I'm expecting that the meta in Arena after the Pro Tour is quickly going to change to a creature matchup. And I think Form of the Dinosaur is really well situated to take down that meta if it does end up changing that way. All of the life gain against aggro is beautiful, and banning creatures with Form of the Dinosaur is absurd. So yeah, we can combo Fountain of Renewal and Dawn of Hope that way as well. Fountain of Renewal gaining us 1 life every turn. This is one way that we can actually break the synergy, break the downside on Form of the Dinosaur. Because as you can imagine, this is probably going to be taking out creatures with powers 2, 3, and 4 most of the time. So as we are dealing 4 to ourselves, taking out these creatures, Fountain of Renewal on our upkeep is gaining us 1 life at a time. And the more of these that we have, the more creatures that are effectively free to kill with a Form of the Dinosaur. So that's something to keep in mind with that one there. We can also, if we need to as well, panic sacrifice it for 3 mana and draw a card. So in addition to all of this, sometimes we actually just need to create a little bit of life gain. So we have Revitalize as our 2 mana, gain 3 life and draw a card. Nice cantrip to find our pieces. And 2 copies of Ritual of Rejuvenation as well. The 3 mana version that gains you 4 life instead and draws you a card. So really nice to buffer our life total until we can slap down Form of the Dinosaur. We're probably going to be around 15 life when Form drops, but it's really good life gain as well. If you're up against a burn deck and you survive until turn 6, usually down to Revitalizes and Rituals, then Form of the Dinosaur to go back up to 15, that's a lot of life gain to have against a burn deck. And then you just start top decking Revitalizes, Rituals, and Sacraments, and you just really just spiral out of control. So we're really suited to take that out. We have early game removal in Lightning Strike as well. 1 and a red for an instant speed. Lightning Strike deals 3 damage to any target. So really nice to either hit face if we need to, or to just take down any early game creatures. That's usually what it's for the most part. You could run a Lightning Coil or 2 over a Lightning Strike, since it is mostly for creatures, but I like the utility of being able to hit face, but also hit Planeswalkers as well. Because a lot of Planeswalkers that minus to kill enchantments go down to 3 loyalty, so Lightning Strike in response to them killing your Form of the Dinosaur or an Ixalan's Binding is really, really solid value. We also have 2 copies of Deafening Clarion as well as one of our sweepers. 1 red and a white to deal 3 damage to each creature, and we can also give creatures lifelink until the end of the turn, which is only relevant if we have Firesong and Sunspeaker, but something to keep in mind all the same. Next we have Cleansing Nova as well as our catch-all board wipe. 3 mana and 2 white for sorcery speed, destroys all creatures, which is 99% of the time what we're going to be using. But if it is somehow a problem for us, we can actually destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Most of our game plan is artifacts and enchantment based, but if it's really not going well for us, then we probably don't have many worth killing, or that we'd feel bad about killing on that side of it, so something to keep in mind there. We have bindings to catch anything that we don't like, and they can stop casting those spells, which is wonderful. Treasure map to set up our scries as well, our draws for the turn, and anything that we could do on that regard. We can also, when we have 3 counters on it as well, flip it over to a treasure cove, which ramps us up 3 mana. We could use that mana immediately to play things like Star of Extinction a lot earlier, which is honestly something that happens quite a fair bit. Or we could actually just save those treasures as extra card draw as well, with the treasure cove side of it. Basically means that we scry 3 and then we draw 3 over 6 turns, which is it's nice, nice slow value, which is basically what we want. We're going to be generating a lot of nice slow value most of the time. So that's essentially the deck. Onto the mana base. It's pretty simple. We got 7 plains and 6 mountains. 4 Clifftop Retreats are tapped unless you control a mountain or a plains, which is most likely always going to be untapped, so Clifftop Retreats are solid. Sacred Foundries, because paying the 2 life is not a problem in this deck. We can pay 2 life to make them come into play untapped, otherwise they come into play tapped if we don't need them. So, Sacred Foundry on turn 1 with a Fountain of Renewal basically says that we can have Fountain of Renewal on turn 1 for 1 mana, because on upkeep we're going to be gaining 1 life anyway, so there's a nice little bit of repayment with the Fountain of Renewal. This is only our only turn 1 play that we'll ever make as well, so it really just undoes the downside of Sacred Foundry in that sense. We have 1 copy of Arch of Araska as well, because drawing extra cards is wonderful. The Ascend means that we need 10 or more permanents on the battlefield. That can be easily achieved with a flipped treasure map, so something to keep in mind there. Most of the time, though, it's probably going to be generated by, lands and enchantments and things like that, so, whatever. And then finally, we have 1 copy of Field of Ruin as just a catch-all for any pesky lands that we don't like. We are running a lot of double reds and double whites, so that's the reason why I'm not running 2 Field of Ruins over, say, a Plains, because I think that the double mana is kind of important. I don't really want to have too many colourless lands if I can help it in this deck. I don't really think you need more than 1 Field of Ruin, because we're only really going to be hitting Search for Azcanta most of the time, so that's what we can do with that. We can pay 2 to sack it, so 3 mana total, to destroy a non-basic land, which is going to be Azcanta most of the time. And they get to search the library for a basic land, and so do we. So we get to thin our deck as well, if we are getting mana screwed, or maybe we have the wrong colours in our deck. So that is the main side, the main deck. The sideboard is quite similar yet again to the Truefire Paladin combo, because we actually have a transformational sideboard of sorts anyway. We have 4 copies of Banefire, because basically game 1 control is really bad. As you might be able to tell, we take care of creatures, but control doesn't really play any creatures, so a lot of our board wipes, our Form of the Dinosaurs and things like that, are all going to come out, and in their place we're going to have 4 copies of Banefire, which are uncounterable, which are great against control decks. X and a red deals X damage to any target, which is most likely going to be face, and if X is 5 or more, this spell cannot be countered, which gets around their wonderful counter spells. Speaking of uncounterable things, we also have 4 copies of Inescapable Blaze as well, a 6 mana instant speed that also cannot be countered and deals 6 damage to any target. I absolutely love this card as a sideboard option. It is wonderful. 6 damage actually can take care of a hell of a lot of controls planeswalkers if you don't want to hit face, but we actually have 24 damage just in Inescapable Blazes here alone. So, we can most of the time actually just hit our opponent in the face with Inescapable Blaze. But being able to hit any target, being able to hit things that are 6 toughness is wonderful. There's just so much potential for that. We also have 2 copies of Star of Extinction in here just to even out the deck. Against Golgari midrange, taking care of their planeswalkers is basically the key to victory for this deck. So in addition to our Ixalan's Bindings, which unfortunately can be killed by a lot of their cards, we also have the Star of Extinction. So having 4 stars means if they have something like a Vivian Reed to minus on Binding to release one of their planeswalkers, we can actually untap and Star of Extinction and kill both of their planeswalkers, all of their creatures, and a land, which is absolutely insane, easily scoopable value if you can get that one to slam. So we basically put our stars up to 4 copies, and we can swap out the Deafening Clarions or the Cleansing Novas for that if we should choose to do so. We also, as I mentioned, have a Deafening Clarion in here just to solidify that early game aggro, because sometimes you don't always draw your Revitalizers and your Rituals, so just having extra tools in here to take care of hyper aggro decks is really nice. So we have 1 copy of Clarion, and we have the additional copy of Ritual of Rejuvenation for that. We also have the 4th copy of Dawn of Hope in here. As I mentioned, it is for the control matchups, because it is very hard to deal with. The reason to bring in the 4th copy is basically to ensure that we get the turn 2 Dawn of Hope down, because that is something that gets underneath their counters most of the time. In addition to Fountain into Dawn, drawing the extra cards is really backbreaking for control. So we bring in the 4th copy just to make sure that we can increase our odds of getting that Dawn of Hope combo down nice and easy. Finally, we have 2 copies of Silent Gravestone against the Golgari midrange decks, which are quite aggressively prevalent today. So, yeah, 1 mana for an artifact. It says cards in graveyards cannot be the target of spells or abilities. So, if we use Golgari midrange as an example, we turn off the Find Brokers, we turn off the Find Finalities with this one. We turn off Eldest Reborns, and anything else that can target the graveyard is completely dead with the Silent Gravestone. We can also use it as a cantrip as well. If we draw the extra one, 4 and a tap to exile Silent Gravestone and all cards from all graveyards. We don't mind hitting our own graveyard because we have no interaction with our graveyard whatsoever, so it's really not a problem there. We also get to cantrip as well, just to replace it if it is a card that we don't want in the late game. So that is essentially the deck. I do hope you guys enjoy today's video. It is a spicy one, and yeah, I'm gonna leave you off here. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that little bell icon. If you hit the bell icon, you'll get notifications when I release videos in the future. I also have a Discord now, which is public, and the link to that is now in the description as well, so be sure to check out the Discord. I hope to see you all there and have a wonderful little chat. Alright guys, thanks very much. See you next time.